So here's something I've been pondering lately. What does it really mean to be an emperor? Take Elagabalus, for example. Ever heard of him? Probably not as much as Julius Caesar or Nero, right? But this guy ruled Rome in the early 200s AD, and his story is, honestly, pretty wild. He became emperor at 14. That's just insane. Can you even imagine the weight on his shoulders at that age? But wait, how did a teenager from Syria end up running the Roman Empire in the first place? Well, his grandma was like a master puppeteer. She claimed he was secretly the son of a former emperor and got the army on their side. It sounds like something out of a soap opera, doesn't it? Yet, that's exactly how Elagabalus entered power. No formal training, just a mix of family ambition and political upheaval. Okay, but what kind of ruler was he? Was he the teenage prodigy who brought great change? Not exactly. Elagabalus was obsessed with this sun god, Elagabal. He moved a sacred black stone representing this god to Rome and built a flashy temple for it. Now, Rome was pretty traditional with its gods, so can you imagine the uproar that caused? It's like if someone today tried to replace a beloved national symbol with something completely foreign and new. It's bound to rub people the wrong way. And get this, he married a Vestal Virgin. That's right, one of these super sacred priestesses sworn to celibacy. Why would he do that? To make this sacred union with the god Elagabal. But honestly, it just alienated the religious establishment. Asking if this was a good political move? Probably not the smartest. Then there's his politics. He shook up the power structure by giving top jobs to his favorites, people the Roman elite considered totally unfit. Imagine the Senate's reaction. They were furious. Was this a kid being reckless? Or someone rebelling against an old decaying system? Maybe a bit of both. Now, people say Elagabalus threw some of the wildest parties Rome ever saw. Imagine this. Rose petals raining down so thickly that guests could barely breathe. Seriously, can you picture sitting there, just trying to enjoy a meal while flowers slowly smother you? And then there were wild animals, like wolves and leopards, running loose in the palace. Sounds terrifying, right? There are also stories, maybe exaggerated, maybe not, of Elagabalus dressing in women's clothes, expressing a fluid sense of gender in a culture that valued strict masculinity. Now, how do you think Roman society reacted to all this? Not well, if you ask the Senate and the aristocrats. Romans were deeply traditional, especially when it came to religion and gender roles. Elagabalus's religious antics, forcing a foreign sun god onto people used to their old gods, and his public displays of un-Roman behavior didn't just annoy them, they felt threatened. The Senate hated how he trampled on their authority and social norms, with many people describing his reign as one of the most scandalous and offensive in Roman history. Ouch! And the average Roman citizen? They probably felt a mix of confusion, fascination, and outright anger. On one hand, Elagabalus tried to please the crowds with lavish gifts and festivities. On the other, many likely saw his excesses as disrespectful to Roman values and traditions. The Praetorian Guard, too, initially supported him, but quickly turned against his antics, especially as he tried to sideline their influence. So yes, Elagabalus's wild parties and personal choices were more than eccentricities. They represented a cultural and political rebellion that frustrated the powerful and unsettled the people. And what about support? Well, it crumbled. The Praetorian Guard, initially his protectors, turned against him when he tried to sideline them. Even his own grandmother switched sides. Within just 4 years, he was assassinated at 18, and the Senate tried to erase him from history. So, what does all this really tell us? Maybe it's that history isn't just about big battles or famous dates. It's about real, human stories. Here's a kid, just 14 years old, suddenly thrown onto the biggest throne in the world. Can you imagine? Who was really running the show behind the scenes? Who was his number two, his power broker, his guide? Because, let's be honest, no 14-year-old just walks in and takes control without checks or help. Was he wild from the start? Or did the weight and isolation of power push him into rebellion over time? Elagabalus's reign feels like a snapshot of an empire wrestling with transformation, caught between old traditions and big, sometimes chaotic, change. It makes you wonder how much of his story is the actions of a teenager grappling with impossible expectations, and how much is the story of those around him managing or maybe even mismanaging that power. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How many leaders today are in the shoes of Elagabalus? History isn't neat or simple. It's messy, complicated, and deeply human, just like all of us. So yeah, Elagabalus might have been a controversial figure, but his story sticks because it's so real. A young emperor trying to hold on while the world around him shifts beneath his feet. And honestly, that's something we all can relate to. Elagabalus was a controversial figure for sure. There's no sugarcoating that. I never met him, but stories has kept his name alive in the most dramatic way. Elagabalus's legacy is kind of a double-edged sword. When we look back, should we only remember the myths and rumors? Or should we see the human behind them? Messy, right?